I was definitely not outwardly obnoxious, but in my mind, I was the obnoxious American. Looking back, I actually do regret this a lot. I really wish that, I am happy with my life today, but hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK for almost 10 years, and in this video, I'm telling you that story. So if you're interested in more content about the UK versus the US or life in the UK as a foreigner, definitely make sure to subscribe. That's how you'll get notified when I have new videos out. But today, I want to tell you the full story of really how I came to live in the UK, why I live in the UK, which is very different at different parts of my story, as I'll get into. I think it just helps in my other videos for people to understand my experiences and where I've come from in terms of my route to living in the UK, because it can be so different whether you're coming here to work or because you have a partner who is British or, you're a student. There's all different things. And I've been on, I think, like 4 to 5 visas during my time here, and I have been on all kinds of different schemes related to interning, being a student, working, getting married here. So let's go through from beginning to end the almost past 10 years and how I got to where I am today. Okay, so this story starts probably as a child. I had some sort of idea that I would like to study abroad one day, but this was sort of just like, I don't know, something in the back. It wasn't like a goal that I had ever written down, but I was definitely someone who was interested in study abroad. What I would think would be just for one semester, which as it turns out, here I am 10 years later. So it was for more than one semester, but I had it in my head, I would like to go abroad for a semester. So when it came to picking a college, I made sure to pick somewhere that I really knew that they valued study abroad and had a pretty full study abroad program. So I ended up going to the University of Pittsburgh, where I spent my entire freshman year. Then in the summer of 2011, I decided to spend my summer working at a summer camp in Pennsylvania. And at this summer camp, I worked as a camp counselor, and I met people from all over the world because it was really popular for Australians and British, usually student college age in particular, to actually go through programs like Camp America. Comment below if you've ever heard of Camp America in the UK. It's a very popular way for British people to come and work at summer camps in the US. So I was an American citizen working at a US summer camp, but I was exposed to all my other co-counselors. Many were from different countries, including the UK. And there was something about that experience that really solidified in my mind the desire to study abroad, because it kind of just felt like, I had never been out of America until I actually studied abroad for the first time. I'd never had a passport. I had traveled through some different states, but I hadn't ever seen a lot of the world. And meeting these people who were from other parts of the world really made me feel like it was much more attainable. I felt like I knew some people who lived in the UK that maybe I could meet up with. And suddenly it didn't feel like such a huge risk to go abroad. So I finished working at the camp in the summer. I came back to the University of Pittsburgh for that fall semester where I did live at Pitt and take classes there. But at that point was when I decided that I'm definitely going to study abroad, and I'm going to do it as soon as possible. So I started that in the spring. I started my application for study abroad that fall, got accepted, and was going to go abroad in spring of 2012. And this was through, at the time, what was called the Pitt in London Study Abroad program. We studied at a place called Kappa, which still exists, and they had a building in Kensington, if you're familiar with London. So we basically spent our days like looking for celebrities on the streets, because Kensington is a very fancy place to have your classes based. And I spent basically the fall prior to my first study abroad program at Pitt, just dreaming of going abroad. Like I said, I thought I was going to go abroad for one semester, and I thought that I would come back and I would, finish my time at the University of Pittsburgh, probably live in America. I had dreams of living in like Boston. I wanted to do the Disney College program for a semester as well. I wanted to intern. At the time, I really wanted to intern for Southwest Airlines in Texas, because when I did fly, which wasn't that often, but I'm a very nervous flyer, and I always loved flying on Southwest because it felt so friendly. Never did that in the end, spoiler alert. But I had all of these plans and all of these dreams to study abroad for a semester, come back to the US, and just be one of those people who had studied abroad and were now getting on with the rest of their life that did not happen. So I studied abroad in spring of 2012, which is where my UK journey really starts. I had an amazing 4 months. I definitely went through like mass culture shock when I first got here. It definitely was that initial like plunge into the living abroad pool where all of these things that I talk about in my videos, I had to experience for the first time. So today, there's not that much that surprises me about the UK because I've been here a long time. I feel like now I can get more into the nuanced things, whereas back in the day, it was like, oh my God, did you know that they say pants to mean underwear here, so never compliment someone's pants, or going to the grocery store and having no idea where anything was. That kind of culture shock was really what that semester was for me. And while I was there, I interned for a charity / company called Adobe Youth Voices, which I don't think exists. It was like a one-person thing, and basically it was to help students see that there were other options available to them in terms of what they wanted to do with their lives. So it was about like showing them technology, using the Adobe like editing software and stuff. I have a very vague recollection of what exactly it was because a lot of the internship involved me like babysitting this person's child. So it wasn't like the most enriching internship experience ever, but it was an experience of getting to go into some British schools, actually like meet British people and not just be stuck in my American bubble. And that was really what gave me the idea that, hey, I could actually like live abroad. I don't have to just study here. Plenty of people live and work abroad, and maybe that could be me as well. So that kind of started this interest in me during that semester. I ended up going home and working at camp again for the summer following that spring, which would have been the summer of 2012. And again, met loads of people from around the world and got back to the University of Pittsburgh for my fall of my junior year. And at this point, I think because London was just like so exciting to me and it was such a different experience and I felt so much independence there, I kind of decided that I didn't want to stay in Pittsburgh anymore. I wanted to finish out my time in college in London, which I'll talk about in a second because I did end up graduating from the University of Pittsburgh, which is kind of confusing, but I was just unhappy and I was back on campus, and it was kind of weird because I had studied abroad, so I had made new friends while I studied abroad, but also some of my friends from earlier in my college journey, like I wasn't as close with them because I had been gone for a whole semester and I had missed a whole semester of life back on campus. And looking back, I actually do regret this a lot. I really wish that, I am happy with my life today, but I wish I had spent more time at Pitt because I was supposed to spend 8 semesters there for a full 4 years and I only ended up spending 4. And I don't think I got out of it as much as I could have. On the other hand, I did end up basically living in London and really having these amazing experiences. So I guess there's not that much to regret, but I definitely feel like I didn't have the full college experience because felt like I was gone for most of it. But if we go back to where my mindset was back then, I really didn't want to be there. I felt like everybody was saying Pittsburgh is like the best city in the world. And I was like, well, no, it's not. Have you been to London? And I was definitely not outwardly obnoxious, but in my mind, I was the obnoxious American who has finally experienced something else and is like, oh my God, like Europe is so cool and cultured and like the UK does things so much better than America. Flash forward to today, and I could definitely come up with pros and cons of both countries. So I am no longer as obnoxious in my head. I do really miss America and I like the UK, and it does not have to be a one or the other situation that it felt like back in the day. So I decided that I'm unhappy here, and so I'm going to finish out my degree basically in London. And so I did that by graduating 1 semester early, which was because I had taken AP classes back in high school. If you're a Brit or someone who is unfamiliar with the US system, basically I had taken college classes in high school, which I could get credit for if I passed certain amounts of tests. And so that got me into college with credits already. And this is also what helped me basically study abroad for the remainder of my time. at the University of Pittsburgh because I had come in with so many college credits that I was able to kind of do more electives and finish my degree earlier. So I ended up doing 2 more separate semesters in the UK because they didn't span one academic year, they spanned 2. So in the spring of 2013 is when I did a direct enroll at UCL through a company called API, and I lived in dorms or halls, as they would call them in the UK, with a bunch of British students, and I took classes at UCL in London with British students. This was a study abroad program that really emphasized like getting involved in UK life and in UK classes. This was not a study abroad program where you took American style classes with a bunch of Americans in the UK. So this was another culture shock for me in terms of education, because now I had to learn how the UK system worked. So after that, I went to camp one more time, and then I basically had one more fall left before I graduated, and that was the fall of 2013. And for this one, I did yet another study abroad program because I clearly wanted to try them all, and I did the AIFS program at Richmond, the International University, which is also based in Kensington. So I spent a lot of my time in my early UK life in Kensington, basically thinking that all of the UK was as fancy as Kensington, and let me tell you, it is not. So I took classes there and I did an internship, and this internship was a really good internship for me. I interned at QVC UK, QVC like the home shopping channel, and I worked in their communications department, and I absolutely loved it. I loved going in to the QVC office building. It was in this, it used to be, I don't know if it still is, it was in this like office park in Chiswick in London, and the Discovery offices were there and the Disney offices were there, and it felt like, stuff was happening. I had the name badge. I was just living my dream. I'm not like a huge home shopping person, but being able to work for a company like that was really fun. And my team there went out of their way to welcome me, and I spent a Thanksgiving there where they decorated this whole sign for me that said Happy Thanksgiving. Obviously, no one else in the building was celebrating Thanksgiving, but they went out of their way to make me feel at home. So that was a really nice experience, and that finished out my student experience in the UK. So I did 3 terms abroad. I interned for 2 of them, and that meant that I had to apply 3 times for 3 different visas because it wasn't one long academic program. It was me going on different programs to satisfy my home requirements, but the UK didn't see it as one degree. I had to have 3 different visa applications, and I then graduated a semester early because I had the credits. And this is again where I say, looking back, I'm like, why did I graduate college a semester early? That doesn't seem like, I wish that I would have taken as much time as I really had, but at the time I was in a completely different place, and this is only the stuff with hindsight. So I graduated, did not go to any sort of graduation because my degree is from the University of Pittsburgh, my bachelor's degree. So that is, I did study abroad, but I basically used study abroad to fulfill my requirements to graduate from Pitt. So I am a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, even though I spent only 4 semesters actually on campus and 3 here in London on University of Pittsburgh approved programs. Now, at the point that I finished my student stuff, this is when I had met my husband. And he was not my husband then. I did not get married in a day or anything like that. But I had met my now husband, and that was actually during my second study abroad program. We met through a mutual friend who knew us both from working at the summer camp I was talking about. And so I had already decided before I met him that I wanted to pursue living in the UK. So I actually am not one of those stories of meeting a Brit and then deciding I wanted to live here. I actually very independently had decided that I wanted to live here in the UK. But obviously now dating somebody in the UK made this all more pressing. So I graduated, and then I went through a company called BUNAC, which basically they have lots of different programs around the world, but they have an intern in Britain program. And the deal is you find your internship, or you can pay a company to find you an internship, and they will help you get sponsored for mine was a 6-month internship visa, which at the time was called a tier 5 visa. So again, more visas. And at this point, I had to go back to the US after graduation, but then had to do my visa from there. But I ended up coming back to the UK for a 6-month visa to work at a company that you might have heard nowadays, but back in the day it was definitely not a household name. So it's called Gusto. And if you're in the UK, you might have seen ads, or you might have ordered a Gusto box. If you're not from around here, the similar ones in the US are HelloFresh and Blue Apron, I think still exist. But basically they were a food delivery service where they would provide pre-portioned, pre-packaged ingredients for you to cook the meals at home. And this was in spring of 2014. So they were fully in a startup phase. Their offices were in Acton in London, and I lived in a part of London called East Acton in a house share, which was the first time ever living by myself. I was living in a house with other people, but I had my own room and was not living in student accommodation anymore. And so that was, again, it was a visa that was valid for about 6 months. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do from there, but I was like, I need to be back in the UK. This person that I'm dating is now there, and I just wanted to spend all of my time in the UK. So I worked for Gusto in their customer service department. Half the time I was on the phone, could not understand the accent on the other end. Again, I was still kind of fresh in the UK at this point, or I had been in mostly American bubbles in the UK. So a lot of my time was spent being I have no idea what you're saying, but hopefully I'm responding correctly and will give you whatever you want. And that visa, again, did have an end date. So that is not a residency visa. That was you need to go back to the US when you're finished. So I did go back to the US when I finished, but at this point I was like, well, how do I stay in the UK now? I can further my education. And I ended up doing a master's degree at the University of Westminster. Master's degree in the UK tend to be a year long. So the visa was for a year and 4 months. So again, go back to the US, apply for this new student visa, get the student visa, and then get to come back and do my master's. So I did my master's at mostly the Harrow campus of the University of Westminster. At this point, I had moved much further out of London to live with my then boyfriend, who then I think became my fiance while I was still doing my master's. And so this, was a degree in public relations, and it was a really great experience. I had really great teaching, very different from, again, this was where I got to compare even more the UK versus the American system, because a lot of it is self-guided here in the UK. So I really got to explore areas that interested me. I worked at the campus bookshop, which was one of the best jobs I've ever had, because the team and the owners were so nice and so amazing to me. But that was basically another year of my life here in the UK. And at this point, once my master's degree finished, was when I needed to be how am I actually going to live here? I had done the student visas, I had done the internship visa, I had done the student visa again to get a master's. You can, I think, go on more student visas if you go on to get a PhD, or if you do a degree in something completely different than what you had been doing to train differently. But I didn't want to keep going to school for the purpose of visas. So at this point was really having the tough conversations with myself and with my then boyfriend. I definitely wanted to live in the UK permanently at that time. So that was what we pursued. And some people get sponsored through finding employment in the UK. And for us, I did look into that, but especially being a new grad and the way the visa rules were back then, it wasn't easy to get sponsored. It was easier to go through a partner visa. And luckily for us, we ended up qualifying almost to the day for what was called, and it's still called, the Unmarried Partner Visa. And this required 2 full years of living together in a relationship, so not just roommates, before you qualified. And you both had to be legally in the country. Thank God, literally down to the day, I think we hit 2 years on the day that my student visa expired and I needed to apply for something else. So that was one of those moments where the world just somehow brought this in. Like, I can't take credit for that part of it. And I know a lot about immigration rules now, and I've, always happy to share my story. But that was definitely like kind of an accident for me to qualify for this, because 2 years prior to that, I didn't really know about this visa, and we weren't like actively, thinking that much about the future. So I applied. This now brings us to 2015, I guess. No, 2016 I applied for my visa. Yeah. Spring of 2016, I applied for my unmarried partner visa, and we ended up getting it. And this then started me on the journey that I have been on for the past 5 years, because this is a residency visa. It counts towards indefinite leave to remain. And the only thing that changed when we got married was really nothing, except when I had to renew my visa, it then technically became like not an unmarried partner visa, but a partner visa, but it's still the same 5 years. Getting married didn't speed up that track or anything like that. So finally, I got my unmarried partner visa, which then allowed me to work where I wanted to. And at that point, I got a job at a study abroad company that was based in London and associated with an American university. And I did that for over 4 years, not quite 5, but I did that from the spring of 2016 until the fall of 2020, when I was made redundant, or for the Americans out there, let go. I know we don't use the word redundant, and so when I told people in the US that I was made redundant, they had no idea like what that meant. So I was let go from this job in October of 2020, and then finally I was able to take my blog and my websites full time, and so Girl Gone London is what I do as my job now, which is super exciting. And so now I'm experiencing self-employed life in the UK as well. And so that brings me to now, which is spring of 2021. So basically, January of 2022, so at the end of this year, I think I landed on like January 4th of 2012, will be my 10 years since I started my UK journey. Now, my feelings about the UK and about the US have changed a lot in this time, and I think I'll do another video on that, because this video is getting a little bit long because I have a lot of years to go through. I'll also do a video on, actually how to move to the UK if you're interested in the actual practicalities of it. But I thought it's really helpful for people who are now following this channel more regularly and commenting and interacting with me and other people to actually understand my journey and the different things that I have done. I also missed out somewhere in there. I worked for, basically I worked in an office in Westminster in London for a company or a branch of the government that is associated with planning, and not like planning birthday parties, but planning like developments and buildings and stuff like that. And that was definitely an interesting experience. I didn't work there for too long, because that was basically learning as an American that no one in the UK likes new buildings or developments. And so being the PR person associated with that was definitely not a fun experience, but it was an experience all the same. So I have worked, lived, studied, gotten married, had an unmarried partner's visa, and all that other stuff in the UK in the past 10 years. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below if you made it all the way to the end. Seriously, if you made it to the end, leave a comment and let me know. I will be very impressed. And thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you next time.